So hi everyone, you are welcome to this video. This is Jamal R.C. Daniel, a student of our community college with the course of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English. So this time we'll be talking about the chapter 10, which is all about principles and strategies of teaching and designing IEP for learners with difficulty walking and moving. So let's get started. The principles and strategies of teaching and designing IEP for learners with difficulty walking and moving have varied educational needs, and most of these needs relate to physical access to or lack of technological aids, manipulations of equipment, classroom and school program participation, limited workstations, proper seating accommodations, and not meeting class schedules due to timely travel. These learners may get affected through course requirements not suitable to these inaccessible facilities in comfort rooms, limited pathway space, inaccessible ramps or lack of unsuitable desks for writing, frequent absences due to hospitalization, and fewer opportunities to interact with classmates. There is a range of inclusive teaching strategies that are useful in teaching learners with difficulty walking and moving. But remember that these learners have varied needs and difficulties, and not all learners have the same condition. It is therefore suggested that teachers perform a confidential discussion with the learners and their parents to completely cover their educational needs. So now, what is the ILO, or the intended learning outcome of this chapter? So the intended learning outcome of this chapter is to make an IEP, or what we call individualized educational plan, that matches the educational needs of learners with difficulty walking and moving. Alright, so now let's engage. Some learners in the inclusive classroom may fully access education with minimal accommodation and modifications. Parents and even teachers are often confused about these two terms, but the general rule is if it helps the learner to complete the same work at the same level as his peer, it is an accommodation. If it changes the work or the work is completed at a different level, that is what we call modification. Okay, so let's give you an example. The learner dictates answer to multiple choice examination. Instead of writing it, it is an accommodation. But when the multiple choice items were lessened to become less complex, then it is a modification. Some learners may require simple to complex specialized instructions and related services with expanded core curriculum where physical independence, special health care routines, using assistive technologies, communication, self-awareness, and social maturation, and also the mastery of daily living skills are taught. So here below, there are a lot of services, modifications, and educational approaches provided to learners with difficulty walking and moving. So what are those? The first one, we have health professionals, environmental modifications, assistive technology, and inclusive classroom approaches. So now let's start with the health professionals. Since learners with difficulty walking and moving have complex needs, their IEP, or Individualized Educational Plan team, consists of varied professionals to assist them in their education and health requirements. So here below, there are two important IEP members for these learners. The first one is the physical therapists, or what we call PTs, and the second one is the occupational therapists, or what we call OTs. So what are the differences between the two? The first one, the physical therapists, these are the licensed professionals that use treatment techniques to help promote mobility, reduce pain, restore function, and prevent further disabilities of learners with difficulty walking and moving. The PTs motivate learners to be independent as possible and suggest seating positions, and classroom activities, exercises or programs that both learners with and without disability can do. While the occupational therapists or OTs are the professionals that determine the learner's goals in life and help them perform daily activities such as self-help, employment, recreation, communication, and aspects of daily living. An example of this is the taking a bath, hygiene, and eating to reach their goals in life. So the OTs guides learners develop their motor skills through activities such as baking and typing on computer keyboards. So here also, we have lots of other specialists that give related services to these learners. It includes the speech language pathologies or the SLPs, adapted physical educators, recreation therapists, school nurses, prosthetics, orientation and mobility specialists, and also the counselors. So now let's now proceed to the environmental modification. So what is this? These modifications are essential in making the environment more accessible to learners with physical and health impairments. Aside from that, creating barrier-free buildings, which is highly suggested. So here are the following ways to make school accessible to learners with physical disabilities. First, have classrooms located in more accessible building levels. Relocate activities to more spacious areas. In grouping activities, let the able learners move to the location of the learner with physical disabilities and make sure that they have enough space to collaborate. Adjust desks, chairs, and tables appropriate to the height of learners that use wheelchairs. Desks should also be prepared for left-handed learners with or without disabilities. Modify response requirements by allowing spoken instead of written ones or vice provide versa. A resource room where learners with physical disabilities can go when needed during the school day to work with their school requirements or with the members of their IEP. Provide adequate floor space for learners that use wheelchairs in the front, on the side, or in the rear of the room so they can park without blocking the flow of traffic. This is also applicable to classes in laboratory settings where setting up special workstation is recommended. Okay, so now let's proceed to the assistive technology. What is assistive technology? Okay, so these are both assistive devices, which is the low-tech and high-tech, and services that are used to develop, increase, and maintain mobility and daily performance of learners with physical disabilities. So here are some examples of assistive technology. The first one is the mobility, and the second one is the communication. What is mobility? Mobility varies with each person. Some can access their devices easily, while others cannot. An example of this are the mouth stick and the headband. What is mouth stick? Mouth stick is a device manipulated with mouth that allow users to control input, while headband is a device similar to mouth stick except that the head manipulates it. To the others' mobility, aids include the scooters, walkers, canes, crutches, and orthotic devices. So now let's come up with communication, the other example of assistive technology. So communications are aids used to communicate either in person or online. So what are the examples of communication? Okay, the first one is the speech recognition software and the second one is the speech generating device. What is speech recognition software? Okay, this is a software that creates text and navigates online by voiced commands. It's usually used by learners with limited mobility. While speech generating device is a standalone device or software that is installed in tablets or phones, where users who are not able to speak on their own can communicate to others. Okay, so now let's proceed to the inclusive classroom approaches. What is inclusive classroom approaches? So according to this, some learners with severe impairments are attended in homebound or hospital education programs, regarded as most restrictive placements, while others are in special classes with smaller class sizes, more adapted equipment, and easier access to professional services. The least restrictive environment, where there is more interaction to learners without disabilities, is the regular classroom. So here below, the some ways in handling learners with physical disabilities in the regular classroom. The first one is to observe the learners with physical disabilities in the classroom and ask if any assistance is needed. Offer help if needed, but don't assume that they always prefer to have other support. So the second one is to use accurate and sensitive terminologies in the classroom as learners, with or without disabilities. Learn from the teacher's knowledge and attitudes. Use simulation and role-playing activities where able learners are given opportunities to use wheelchairs and other assistive devices to help raise awareness of some barriers their classmates are facing. When conversing, make eye contact, smile, and make sure that your head is at or below the eye level of the learners using wheelchair. Sit or crouch near the learner, but do not lean on their shoulders to avoid invading their personal space. Make sure that reasonable in between breaks are given to these learners for travel time purposes. Plan class schedules before the school year starts, as so many to minimize travel time and distance between classes. Allow learners who have difficulties in writing to record class lectures or to have note takers. Create test accommodations in the form of extra time or the use of word processor. Involve learners with arm and dexterity problems in laboratory classes and pair them with able learners who can carry out procedures. In this way, learners with disabilities can learn and are actively involved except on physically manipulating laboratory materials. And the last one is to work with learners with physical and health impairments to arrange for appropriate time for completions of class assignments. Okay, I hope you've learned a lot and you have fun about this chapter. And I hope you've listened. And thank you for watching.